more Playground. Joining us now is Arkansas Congressman and Chairman of the House Intel Committee, Rick Crawford. Chairman Crawford, we're so happy to have you because we just learned there will be a classified briefing tomorrow at 5:30 p.m., including the Gang of Eight, top House, of course, leaders plus Intelligence Committee chairs. You will be in that meeting. What are you expecting to hear?
Well, I wouldn't be able to comment on what I'm expecting to hear, but what I just heard from Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rubio and the president was absolute music to my ears. This is exactly what this country has needed, and that is leadership in this hemisphere. We need to be projecting strength in our neighborhood, and our allies welcome that. So more of the same, I hope, is what we continue to hear.
Mr. Chairman, do you have much confidence that Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is going to work with this administration to move forward, or is this going to be a problem for the Trump administration?
Well, it's hard to speculate. I think probably she is engaging in some rhetoric right now, probably to save face with some lingering Maduro loyalists. That's not a good move on her part, and certainly not a good move for those Maduro loyalists to continue to press their suit there in Venezuela. So I think what we'll see is that position soften over time as they see that the president's not playing around. President of the United States is being very clear. And I think that probably that means that you'll see that rhetoric toned down quite a bit in the coming days.
Chairman Jason Chaffetz here. A question for you about what's going to happen in the region, because I believe personally, I think this is the first of several dominoes that are probably going to play out. Talk to us a little bit about Cuba, that being the closest proximity, 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Cuba's role, its proximity and need for the Maduro regime and Venezuela. How does all of that play out, as well as the other Caribbean nations?
Well, Cuba and Venezuela have had a symbiotic relationship for a long, long time. Cuba provides health care. They send doctors. This is like a deployment that doctors hate. Cuban doctors would rather drive taxis than be deployed to Venezuela. And believe me, I've been there many times, and I know that's what's taking place in Cuba. That's number one. Number two, Cuba needs Venezuelan oil. And that what further complicates this is that Cuba is who is providing security for Maduro, and the colectivos that we hear so much about, those are Cuban military. And so what we're probably seeing here is the beginning of the end for Cuba, because they no longer have the resources that will be provided by Venezuela. This also plays into what I call the communist triad of the Western Hemisphere, that is Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. This probably doesn't bode well for Nicaragua, if we're being honest about it. I mean, I'm sure they're watching anxiously, wondering when the next boot is going to fall and where they'll be in relation to that. So this is actually a good step in helping to push back on socialism here in our hemisphere. And I think this is a pretty strong sign that Iran, Russia, China, you're playing in the wrong sandbox.
Chairman Crawford, I want to ask, as you're heading into potentially getting some information this week, a lot of people have questions about how Venezuela will be run. What's next as this all continues to unfold? What are the questions that you have? What clarity are you seeking?
Well, I'm curious what kind of model they might try to employ here. I mean, we've seen this happen before, for example, in the Balkans, the Dayton Accords that set a governing structure that is still in effect today in Bosnia-Herzegovina. So it's not as though we don't have some sort of, model for what may work or may not work and options to try here. So I don't know what they'll do next, and I'm not suggesting that that model would work here or that it's even necessary, but I'm just saying that those ideas are things that have certainly be talked about. It's not as though that the United States wants to go down there and colonize Venezuela. What I think the United States is about is self-determination, free and fair elections, liberty, and justice for all, and that applies in Venezuela too. And on President Trump's watch, I think that's what you're going to see.
Well, I want to talk to you about your Democrat colleagues, Chairman, because we see them all over social media. They're not happy about this. It's interesting, as I mentioned earlier, to watch the No Kings folks now suddenly excited about a narco-terrorist dictator, and some even calling for his release. It's really stunning. But I do want to talk about your Democrat colleagues and what you expect from them over the coming days and weeks.
Well, it's hard to anticipate what they're going to say from one day to the next, but it's really difficult to deal with folks that hate Trump more than they love their country. And that's part of the problem that we see. Look, I want to be friends and I want to be conciliatory and I want to have relationships with our friends across the aisle. But they've got to take the Trump goggles off and recognize this is not just about Trump. This is about securing our hemisphere and ridding our important neighborhood of one of the worst actors this hemisphere has seen in decades. And so I just wish they would get over the Trump hatred and start loving America as much as they hate Trump.
Chairman, none of this happens. A president can't make a decision unless he has incredible intelligence. You can't cough up sources and methods, I understand that, but as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, talk to us about what had to happen to lay the predicate so that the president could put all of this in motion, because it was flawless. No Americans got hurt. The extraction was just pitch perfect. But talk to us about those quiet warriors and what they go through and the intelligence that we had in order to make this happen.
We'll never know their names. We'll never see their faces. They do this kind of work without an attaboy, without much other than their own, personal satisfaction in knowing they did a good job. This is a result of, not just weeks and months, but really years of collecting on what is a hard target. It's difficult work, and my hat's off to these folks who have done a fantastic job in helping inform this strike, making sure that all the conditions were there and optimizing the path to success. And as you said, a precision strike that was just flawlessly executed. We had, some injuries in the process of this. They are in good. They're safe now. They're under good care. And these kinds of things happen when you engage in kinetic strikes. But look, hats off to our legal community. DOJ, FBI was present there, leading this along with the support of our Department of War assets. Couldn't have gone any better. And you see the result of that is one of the worst drug kingpins in history is now in custody in the United States of America.
Mr. Chairman, when you talk about the other nations in the region that you mentioned, like Cuba, like Nicaragua, the future there, do you see anything additional to just the economic pressure that the U.S. has put on those countries and the situation is putting on those countries, or will the U.S. have to act more directly like it did with Nicolas Maduro?
Well, I think what we're seeing in places like, for example, in Cuba, I think you may very well see a popular uprising there. There's a lot of connective tissue. We have, really, for lack of a better term, we have a familial bond with Cuba. We have so many families in South Florida that are directly connected to family members in Cuba that then remittances are a big part of their economy. They rely on the United States, whether they want to admit it or not. We can play an outsized role there in influencing those folks and helping them to organically rise up and help overcome that oppressive regime. We're probably likely to see something similar in Nicaragua as we start to see Daniel Ortega, who is getting very long in the tooth. He's been there a long, long time, and biological regime change is probably coming soon for Ortega in Nicaragua as well. So a lot of these things are in motion right now, and whether or not we play a role, I think we can sit back and watch it happen, or we can help sort of nudge it in the right direction diplomatically and economically. And I think that's what you'll see take place in places like Cuba and Nicaragua.
I think there are a lot of folks very excited about those possibilities. Chairman Crawford, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You bet. Thank you.